Hey guys, my name is Eric and today I'm going to be talking about the FSB Alpha AK. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another HatchetCast episode, and today we're going to be covering the FSB Alpha AK clone that I did that was able to happen because of Heritage and also Midwest Industries. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, make sure you share this video with a friend. If you're an AK guy, go ahead and go in the comment section below and let me know what you're running for your AK builds. I very quickly found out that the AK community is a very interesting hybrid stepchild in the gun community and also has some really cool people in it. If you are part of that AK community, make sure you comment below. I really had a lot of fun doing this one. Before we get started, I want to talk about the channel sponsor, and that is Wetworks. Now, Wetworks makes all different types of products that are nylon gear, but one of the products that I want to highlight is the AK magazine placard. Now, if you've ever looked at like AK stuff, or what's usually available is either Chicom stuff that's kind of outdated, has like the wooden toggle, or it has a button, or it's really old surplus stuff that's just not really ergonomic. As far as what we're seeing in like Ukraine and the fighting over in Europe, is people are using a lot of just like different size magazine pouches that aren't necessarily made for AKs, and also the weird shape of how it's like a banana is just kind of awkward. Well, Wetworks has kind of solved that problem with their placard. Now, as far as the AK placard, what's great about it is, one, it's Velcro, it's got a pull tab, has the traditional look of a standard AK style nylon gear, and the magazine can come straight out. So I don't have to like angle the mag in to get it to drop and sit inside the magazine pouch. It literally just drops straight in, and it looks really clean. Now this one holds three magazines. They do also have a chest rig, like an updated version of the Chicom that has this, and also Molly on the side. But really cool product from them. If you're into AKs and you've been looking for a way to hold magazines on your plate carrier or on a chest rig, go check out Wetwork. Go save some money with the discount code in the description below, and that way you can get outfitted with some top quality nylon gear. So special thanks to Wetworks for sponsoring this video. All right, so talking about the AK project. First off, I want to say this video would not have been possible if it wasn't for Heritage. They're actually a small family-owned business in Mississippi. So if you're in the Mississippi area, they have a really good size establishment and a lot of selection. And my buddy Andrew over there was able to help secure this Wazer 10 from Century Arms for this project. Now, I did reach out to Midwest Industries, and they were super excited to outfit this, to make this build happen, and also kind of showcase their Alpha series furniture. So special thanks to those guys to be able to allow this video to even come to fruition, and had a lot of fun doing it. So make sure you go check them out, and if you're in the Mississippi area, go check out Heritage Firearms and support a family-owned business. So starting off with the AK, this is my very first AK. Like my first serious one. I had one a long time ago. It was like an M+M10, and this is like 2009 is when I had this thing, maybe 2010. And was just getting into guns. I had like a Beretta 90-2 and 40 cal, and I had an M+M10 AK. I got rid of it because I was just like, it's not really my thing. But I didn't really appreciate some of the really cool qualities of the AK platform. This is the Century Arms Wazer 10. Now, AKs, if you guys haven't noticed, have gone up in price quite a bit. They used to be one of those types of platforms that you can get into really cheap. And throughout the years, and especially with all the tariffs and all the stuff that's going on economically with the trade war, AKs are getting harder and harder to come by. Now, Century Arms does get these Wazer 10s from Romania, and there's honestly a mixed bag. Either sometimes I've heard reports like people get good ones and they run like flawlessly, which is what I had, that type of experience. This thing ran absolutely flawlessly. Then there's others people that have the Wazer 10, and they're just plagued with problems. Everything from the front sight post being crooked to things not being in spec to, you know, abnormal wear and tear on the bolts and the upper trunnion. So like, it's just a lot of different things that people have talked about, but I didn't have any of those experiences. So either I got lucky or Century Arms has kind of cleaned up their act. I don't know, you be the judge. One of the channels I'm actually gonna do a shout out for is KLAY Co 47. He actually hosts like the Kalash Bash event. I haven't been to one of those, maybe I'll go out to one of them, but shout out to him. He doesn't know me from Adam, but I watched a lot of his videos to be able to get an understanding and a grasp on the AK platform, and he has a massive appreciation for it and is really you know, intelligent on a lot of the things all regarding AKs. So with this, I kind of just jumped in, you know, feet first. And as far as this is concerned, I think the Century Arms Wazer 10s right now are going for about $1,000 MSRP, but you can find them used all over the place. The key is, it's, you know, from what I've heard, it's a mixed bag. So either you get a good one or a bad one. You know, you're kind of tossing a coin with that. So the AK for me is a perfect gauge to see like how crazy and wild the gun industry is, because like you go from something like a Wazer or, you know, AKs 10, 12 years ago, you could get them for $300, $400. Nowadays, they're getting really high in price because of all of this trade stuff that's going on. So with that being said, the other thing that's really a challenge with the AK is trying to modernize it and update it without doing a lot of cutting and chopping and grinding and stuff like that. So originally this had like wood furniture on it. We actually, at the Element Training Complex, Andrew and I ripped this thing apart. Mostly it was Andrew from Heritage Firearms that ripped this thing apart and you know, put on all of this Midwest Industries furniture on there. Now, one of the things that I will say about this right off the bat, it is a chunky, heavy boy. Like, this thing is got some weight to it. It's not light by any means. Obviously, I'm shooting a bigger caliber, shooting 7.62 by 3.9, so it's gonna, even the ammo is gonna weigh more. But with the additional furniture, this thing starts to add up quick in terms of the weight. Now, originally I was running this to be able to showcase the Dead Air Sandman X suppressor that it can run an AK. Run on an AK platform, did beautifully. If you want to check out that video, you can go check that out, the Dead Air Sandman X. Great suppressor, 3D printed, really good price point, and it's a low back pressure style suppressor. But it ran on this thing perfectly fine, ran like a sewing machine, and really had a good time with it. But let's start off at the very front of this platform, and we're gonna work our way back and talk about all of the different pieces of furniture and items that are on this specific build. Now, at the very front of this, there's two different muzzle devices that was running on here. I was running the Dead Air muzzle brake on there, and there is a small pin on the very front on most AKs where you actually have to depress that pin, and there's two notches on all the different muzzle devices. So you actually press that down and then rotate it. Now, for the thread pitch on this, it is a right-hand thread, which is kind of weird and backwards, but that's Soviet ways, right? Everything's just different. So as far as the muzzle device I'm running currently is the Midwest Industries Blast Diverter. Now, what's fascinating about this is there was actually a Russian variant that was, honestly, it's really hard to get nowadays. Now, there is a Russian variant of this type of muzzle device, and it's called the Deltatech Vityaz Blast Diverter. Now, that thing is really hard to get, and it's also really expensive. I think it's like $300 to $400 if you can find one. But they're really popular because we see them in pictures of the FSB, the Alpha guys, or Spetsnaz units that are using them, or special police units. And what that does is there's actually micro chambers in here and also vents to be able to send that blast forward. So it works decent when it comes to flash, and we'll talk about the signature on this in a second. Has just a really interesting look and is honestly really cool. But Midwest Industries developed one called the Alpha Series Blast Diverter, which is their variant of it. Now, it does have two slots in here, so it can work on that nipple for that right-hand thread. And there are actually vents and holes all the way around, as well as a chamber that is a fatter chamber here, where gas can kind of vent out the front, and then a smaller chamber up here, where there's other holes additionally around the muzzle. So on this muzzle device, there's actually, we also have some teeth, so that way you can stick it into a barricade or put it into, you know, different types of material, and it will stick in there. So you have those teeth there for extra bite if you're trying to shoot off something. But it does a really good job of taking away the concussion that we usually get with muzzle brakes on a lot of AK platforms and sends that blast forward, especially if you can imagine being in a CQB environment, especially like in Ukraine. Right now there's a ton of urban fighting that's happening in that fight over there. And so can you imagine being inside of enclosed space and then getting shot at with one of these, all that pressure and blast going towards you, as well as obviously the projectile itself. So definitely a nasty type of muzzle device when you really think about the actual application of this thing. But as far as, you know, directing that blast and also mitigating that recoil, it has a couple of things to think about. One of them is inside of these chambers, you're gonna have sometimes there's gonna be some unburnt powder, especially when you start shrinking this thing down. This is a full-size AK platform, so I don't have it as much, but as you have a few shots, you know, every like 10 rounds, if you stop shooting for a little bit, that first shot is gonna have a decent muzzle blast and muzzle flash, because all that unburnt powder is gonna be inside of there, and it's gonna ignite and project forward, and then after that unburnt powder is out of the device, then you end up having, you know, no muzzle flash. And so I have kind of a diagram, or actually a video illustration of what that looks like when it is being seen from the enemy perspective of what it looks like when you're getting shot at. And obviously it's just a typical smoke, but you don't have any flash. So it's the same type of thing with almost like suppressors, where you have that fireball initially, especially with your K style cans or shorter cans, where you have some of that unburnt powder that will ignite and then project a big fireball out the front, and then after that fireball's gone, you're good to go. So just something to consider. Obviously, we start shrinking this thing down. Maybe that might happen more often. I don't know. Maybe that's something that we'll test with a shorter AK platform as we start to dive more into AKs on this channel. Going back here, obviously we have typical AK iron sight. The only thing I do like is that you can adjust your windage and the elevation here at the front sight post. But you have to have some sort of crazy tool to be able to adjust this thing. So very Cold War era type of thing. For those who are in AKs, you guys know this, but I think it's a good sighting system. It's just a pain in the butt to adjust. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. All right, working our way back here, I do have a Defense Distributors laser. There is gonna be a video that's gonna be coming out on this thing. It's the GL4 Pro XL, and is actually meant to be able to fit on pistols as well. It does have a clamp and a toggle switch here on the back. A combination of laser and light, combination of laser and illuminator. It's got a lot of stuff in this small little package. So there will be a video coming on that. Very surprising as far as how bright the illuminator is on this thing. It's absolutely nuts. But this was a perfect platform to put it on, and it's on top of this Alpha Series rail. This is the MLock Rail. It comes in 6-inch and 10-inch. I voted for the 10-inch, obviously, because I wanted to have more rail space up there. But the one thing I will say about the Alpha Series rail is when you are getting it, the MLock is very low profile. So you can only mount certain types of muzzle device or laser aiming modules on top of that. So if you have like maybe a smaller laser aiming module or like a smaller style hollow sun, that would be a good spot it can mount on there. But if you're trying to put like a PEC 15 or something bigger, you're not going to be able to fit that. So you'd either have to mount it to the side like a flashlight, and then maybe mount the flashlight on top. But the rail on top, this pick rail, is very low pro, and actually you're going to have run out a side slot here to be able to mount these lasers onto. So that's why I went for a smaller laser. Now on the other side, I do have the IR and white light Enforce light. I opted for this so that way I could use the IR flood on this while working a laser, or aim passively and just use this. The flood on this thing is absolutely massive, but I wanted to back up there, and it's also what I had laying around. Really cool on this light, it switches on to white light. Is a switch here, switch it back, it's now on IR. I can also put this locking mechanism. It doesn't really do much, so I usually have it out the way. But what I like about this the most is the fact it is a deliberate button push to be able to activate the light. It runs off of CR123 batteries, and I have it mounted here on the side as well. Now, when you do get this, they will send some MLock Pikatini rail sections. I love that. The other thing to note about the FSB Alpha Rail 1 is it is extremely rugged. I mean, like, it is locked in there. There's more screws on this thing than the Titanic. It's got tons of different attachment points, which means when you get your white marker and you're doing witness marks, you get a lot of stuff to mark up. On the very bottom here, there also is set screws in there to apply tension to make sure that it doesn't move around on that. And so it is extremely rugged and super durable. On the Alpha Rail, I do have a Die-Frico hand stop here. Really good placement. I love these. With your AKs, because you have a banana style magazine, you end up hitting your hand stop if you have a longer hand stop. So going with a smaller, shorter style hand stop is definitely the way to go, or not run one at all. So that way when you do your reloads, it's not going to prohibit that magazine from being able to seat really fast. You don't want to have it where it's so close. You have to very, gently finesse the mag into place without hitting the hand stop. So just something to consider, something that I figured out when I was running this about what type of hand stops that I can and cannot run, just because the AK platform itself is just different. So off this, I have obviously my elevation sight so I can adjust for my yardage or meters. You just pinch those two and use them up, so you always got backup iron sight. Now connected to the Alpha handguard or the Alpha rail is also the Alpha top rail cover. So there's actually Pikatini that goes along the entire length of this rail cover. It does connect to the Alpha rail, so you have extremely rigid lockup, very similar to like the Zenit code type stuff coming out of Russia. And you can also push this button and lift that up. Now, a lot of your traditional AK mounting solutions for optics usually will have a side rail, which actually we had one on here and had it removed off just to kind of save some of that weight, because we were going to be running this type of system. And in the past, one of the issues that you ran into is these would be really wobbly if you had guys that would try welding them on there and stuff like that. So you weren't able to hold zero, or you had to remove your sight, your rear sight, and then place some sort of adapter with a pick rail to be able to mount an optic. So Midwest Industries came up with a solution that is extremely rugged, that prevents you from losing zero, that makes this top rail cover very stiff and connects into the handguard, so that way you don't have any sort of loose tolerances and wiggle. So that's what I'm running on top of the AK for the optic. And on the AK, I'm running the EOTech OpMod optic. It's from Optics Planet, and it has their brand new reticle that they just released that actually is really interesting. If you look at the reticle, it has a very odd shape, and with that shape, you put your dot at 50 and 200. So if you do a 50-yard zero on the EOTech, you're holding 50 and 200 on that center dot. And then the little chevron underneath at the very bottom is your CQB reticle. So you can actually place that chevron, make sure check it's at 7 yards. And if you put that reticle on your target at 7 yards, you should be able to hit center. So really cool. The EOTech Donut of Death actually has that as well, where they tell you, hey, use the bottom of the donut to be able to do CQB type stuff. But EOTech, working with Optics Planet, developed a new reticle for the OpMod program, so that way you can use that reference point and it sticks out like a sore thumb. So really cool optic. Really, obviously, love the EOTech platform. You've been running EXPS3s for a long time. I pretty much run them on everything, and they're really good for passive aiming with night vision. I think they have the best, one of the best optics for passive aiming under nods. Now, as far as the Wiser 10, when you do get it, they do send you a US Palm magazine, so a 30-round mag. I'm actually running a Circle 10 magazine here. So got Circle 10 mags, have different types of magazines, a traditional metal style magazine. Also running a Magpul magazine. These Magpul mags are really nice. They sit really well, very tight, and they're also not super duper heavy. So like one thing I noticed with the AK is I'm always trying to figure out ways to save weight on different things. So instead of running metal mags, I run like, P mags. Obviously I'm running a single metal mag here, but if you're gonna run this platform or you have no choice because you're in a conflict and is what you got, try to figure out ways that you can save weight as much as you can, because it's just gonna be naturally heavier than an AR-15. So just consider that. Big thing is you're gonna get a great arm pump when you're doing drills for the day. On this, like I said, I got the Circle 10 magazine. On the Wiser 10, and have already installed an oversized mag release, so I can hit this oversized panel right here. And for the reinsertion of the mag, obviously for AKs, it's front first. Get that magazine lip in there and then crank it in there to lock it in. Kind of very old Cold War Soviet style technology, still exists today, and it's being used in conflicts all over the world right now. So you can definitely get really good at it. For me, as a lefty, sometimes I feel like the AK is almost made for southpaw shooters. So I can actually use that magazine to be able to hit that panel, strip that, it's gonna drop my speed reload, insert my new magazine. My charging handle is right here where my hand's gonna be at, rack that sucker back, and I'm good to go again. So the only thing that stinks for a lefty is I have to bring my hand back here to be able to activate the safety or deactivate it. As far as right-hand shooters, an oversized safety, so that way you can use your hand to sweep it down and sweep it up. So you can use single hand manipulation without having to remove your firing hand. So really cool that they offer that. The great thing about the this safety also, they have a cutout, so that way you have bolt open. So it's not one of those things where you have last round bolt open. That's going to be a magazine feature. But if I wanted to lock that thing open in the rear, there's actually that slot in the safety lever. And if I want to, I can sweep it down and send that sucker forward. Whenever you're press checking these, I noticed it was really nice to be able to have that safety lever there where I can bring this sucker back just to be able to press check and not overly, you know, rack the bolt back to the rear and rack a round out. If I just want to press check, very easy to do. I do have some light lube in this. I'm running some gun butter on this bad boy. That's the first time I lubed it in 1,000 rounds. I just lubed it today for some drills. So it's been running like a friggin' sewing machine ever since. And that's just the AK, man. Like, you can get really accurate hits with these as long as you know what you're doing, and as a shooter you have a solid grasp of the fundamentals. Like, you can stretch this sucker out at perfectly good distances, 300-400 yards if need be. So don't feel like, well, just because it's an AK, it's going to be a much more inaccurate platform. Is it as accurate as a really good quality AR-15? Probably not, like neck and neck if you actually put them side by side, but it's close enough where this is such a good contender and such a reliable piece of equipment that even in conflicts all over the world, this is the primary choice. Now, one of the things I thought was fascinating is in Ukraine, we're finding that a lot of Russian FSB and special operations units, you know, over there they're using 5.45, they're using the AK-74 platform, but rumor has it there's a lot of Russian special operations units that are going back to the 7.62x39 because it's such a hard-hitting round. Like, the round itself has got so much mass behind it, and when it smacks, it's absolutely devastating. So, really interesting how they're using that. Obviously, if you run subs on this, you can actually get subsonic rounds. So it's almost like a old school 300 blackout if you're running suppressor. And really, really quiet. Actually super quiet when you're running subs on this thing. On the bottom here, obviously I got a Magpul grip, swapped that out, had the original US Palm, like super skinny plastic grip, and it's terrible, just hated it. So swapped it out for an MOE grip. And then on the back here, Midwest Industries does make a Pikatini backplate. So if you have a shorter system, or you are running a Crink, or you're running, you know, a Draco or something of that nature, and you want to put a brace on it, a side folding brace, or make it an SBR, you can actually get a Pikatini adapter so you can run all of your traditional side folding stocks that are out there on the market. And there was some grinding and some chopping that I had to do to be able to get this to fit, because every AK is slightly different from what I've been told and what I experienced. So it's not CNC and super perfect and within specs. So like, these things are stamped and folded and using like old school technology. So they're all gonna be slightly different. It was so out of spec that I had to adjust and do some grinding and filing to be able to get this thing in. And so Andrew and I were up till like 1 in the morning when we were doing this, trying to get this sucker on. And when we did it, it was definitely a huge time of celebration. On the back here, I have the Alpha Series folding stock. Dude, this thing has like such a cool vibe to it. I'd love to see one on a BRN 180, but it does have a side folding option. So if I wanted to run this inside of a bag, or I want to use it for like my truck gun or whatever, I can just pull this over to the side, and now I have a smaller compact package that can fit inside of a Vert X bag, or I can carry into my truck. So this is like one of the benefits of the AK platform. Everybody's kind of going to the piston systems now, or running like BRN 180s, or converting their ARs to run a piston kit. But dude, the AK is the original, man. Like, you can do a lot with this. And so being able to side fold this, the cool thing about the Alpha Series stock is it does have this cheek riser. So if you look at a lot of the FSB special operations guys in Russia or even Ukraine, they have these Zenitco style cheek risers. This is the Midwest Industries version. So you have an adjustable cheek riser, so you unscrew these screws, adjust your cheek riser to your perfect height, and you can also adjust the back of the stock and the length of pull. So I push this side button and I can adjust my length of pull on this. So really neat option. On the very back, there are 2 different QD sections on this. So if you want to run a QD point here at the base where the hinge is, or on the very back, you have a QD point for your sling. So running this thing for you know, over 1,000 rounds. It has been a really cool learning experience for me. It's one of those things where I can definitely see the appeal and the vibe. Like the AK just has a traditional, just good sounding, like, I hate to be a cheesy with it, but it does have a really cool sound, and I get the appeal of the AK platform. It's a hard-hitting round, extremely capable, used in conflicts all over the world, and the updated furniture that is being brought out, the Alpha series by Midwest Industries, allows that Zenitco FSB Alpha Spetsnaz style upgrade kit to be readily available for people here in the States. So if you're interested in AK stuff, I would definitely check out Midwest Industries on their Alpha series furniture. If you're trying to get a really good arm workout, start shooting AKs. But overall, guys, as far as this platform goes, it's been running like a freaking sewing machine. I'll probably do an update video later, or if you'd like to see me do more AK style content, please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to start getting into it some more because it's just a really cool community out there within the shooting community, and those folks are wild out there. Had a lot of fun with this, and if you'd like to see more AK content, let me know down in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back to Eric for an encouraging word. Hey guys, so hopefully you got something out of that episode. One of the things I want to talk about for this video is our roles as fathers and as husbands and as men in our family. You know, I actually have a really close friend of mine that is a police officer, and I'll let him tell that story, but went through a really traumatic case. And it kind of reminded me of a story that I have that's a personal story of mine. I talked about it during the Bible study on one of the live Bible studies that we did on the YouTube channel. But I wanted to share it with you guys, the main audience, just because I think it's such a good reminder of how important it is for us to be the gatekeepers and the protectors and the guardians of our family, and not the conduits for evil things that are constantly trying to bombard and attack and rip our families apart. And I will say this, you know, when it comes to like gun stuff or gear and buying things or getting training, if you have a hard time, you know, being able to connect with your family because of your job or work or finances, I would say that should be your primary focus, not going on to this video and buying a bunch of stuff off of, you know, affiliate links and whatever, or going and, you know, gun shopping or going out and do this. Like, find ways to connect with your family. You know, your kids are never going to remember all the times that you were working late. They're just going to remember all the times that you weren't there. And so it's a good reminder for all of us, I think, to make sure that we are going after our first mission set, which is our family. And, you know, Satan will use all different outlets and ways to be able to attack you and your family unit, especially if you're really putting in the time to be able to make sure that you have a strong family unit, you're raising your kids with godly principles, you're, you know, being very loving to your wife without looking for anything in return, a love that Christ would give. And, you know, there was at one point in my life, I was not a good husband or a good father. And, you know, there'd be times where I'd get super depressed and get angry, and I'd be drinking. And, you know, it reminds me of this one story that I thought about because my buddy just went through that traumatic case of a perfect example of what happens when you're not a guardian of your family and you become the conduit. So, you know, few years back, my family and I were gifted an Airbnb close to where I work because I used to work really far away. And so I would have to drive 2-3 hours, sometimes 4 hours a day back and forth to be able to get to work. And so I was having a hard time with things. And so, you know, some cousins of mine and my wife's, they gifted us an Airbnb pretty much where I was at, where I was working. So that way it was a really short commute. And so we were there for about a week. And when I get there and after work, you know, start drinking, and it's our first night there. My son was like, "Well, I want to go sleep in this one bedroom. I get to have my own room," and all this type of stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no worries." And so as the night progressed, just relaxing, but drinking more than I should. And so, you know, we go to bed, and I'm in bed, and it's really late at night, and all of a sudden, you know, my son was making this big deal about wanting to sleep in this room and hang out in that room, and blah, blah, because it was like his own room. It was something that was his, and I was like, "Sure, no worries." And then right before I'm about to go to sleep, he runs into the room and is like, "I'm not sleeping in there. I'm not sleeping in there at all. I don't want to sleep in there." And at the time, I just reacted so terribly. I was yelling and being like, "Get back in your room." And I was tired and had too much to drink. I was super mad at him and thought he was just being defiant. And, you know, looking back, now knowing what I know, I just feel so terrible about how I treated him. You know, ever since I've been walking with the Lord for these last 2 years, I've really been seeing things in such a different light. And, you know, he told me that story. He reminded me of that. And he reminded me and told me about what it was that he saw in that room. And so he was getting ready to go to bed, and he's laying down, and in that bedroom there's a closet. And in that closet, he said he saw something move. And he looked into the closet, and the lights are off, really dim. There's a night light there. And he was probably like 7 years old, 8 years old at the time. And he said that he saw something standing in the closet. And it was super, super tall and had bright red eyes and really sharp needle-like teeth and extremely long fingers and extremely sharp nails. And he says, Dad, it was so tall, but the skin was like, it was like white skin, and the skin looked like it was too small for it. Like it was stretched super tight over this really long, tall being hunched over, standing, staring at him in the closet. He said that he felt so much hatred from this thing, that it hated him so much, and it really scared him, and he was just petrified, laying in bed. And eventually, he ends up, you know, getting the courage to run into our bedroom and be like, I don't want to sleep in there. I want to be with Mom and Dad because it's safe in here. And I just was yelling at him and, you know, making him feel bad, you know, not realizing that this was the terror that he was dealing with, you know, working up all that courage. That was what he was going through. And he comes to his Mom and Dad where he should feel safe. And I just yell at him that he's being disobedient and not listening and being defiant and not wanting to go in his room, and how he's just always causing trouble and just all these terrible things. Like putting myself in his shoes, man, I mean, that was probably so hurtful. And, you know, talking to him a little bit more, I was like, when did you see that? He says, I noticed it, Dad, he said, I noticed it that night when you were drinking and you were starting to get frustrated and angry and grumpy about things. And then I noticed it. That's when I saw it the first time. And then when I went into my bed, it was in the closet. And so that really just broke my heart, man. Like, it made me feel so ashamed of, as a father, we should be the guardians of our family. And, you know, through that outlet of drinking alcohol and being angry and depressed and taking it out on my family, Satan was using that as a conduit, as an entryway, as an open door, right? Because those demons have to get past the father. The father is the one that they have to get past to be able to get access to the family. And I was, you know, not even pulling guard duty at the gate. Like, I was just a drunkard that was allowing that stuff to come in, and my son had to experience that. And it was such a good reminder, you know, of how important it is for us as fathers and as husbands to really take care of our families, to really look after our loved ones, to be the one, the guardian that stands guard in between what else the world is going to throw at you, all the evil and stuff in the world. You are the barrier. God wants to use you as the warrior to stand in the gap for your family. Will you fight for your family? Will you fight for them? I didn't fight for mine. And because of that, my son had that experience. And now it's a learning point and a lesson and a great reminder. Thank you, Jesus, for that it didn't accumulate to something worse. But like, it is one of those things where I think it is so important. The world is always trying to throw evil things and get access to you and your family and your kids and your wife. And you have to be the warrior that stands in the gap. And how many broken families exist out there nowadays because of fathers that were absent, or were drunk, or were never home, or never around? Like, how many broken kids are grown up now that are dealing with traumas and things from the past? Not even like horrible traumas, but just being neglected. And so my mission and challenge to all of us, myself included, stand in the gap. Be the warrior father that God has created you to be. Be the compassionate warrior husband that loves fiercely, but is ready to be a straight savage to anything that tries to come and hurt his family, spiritually, physically. And so we need to stand in the gap. We as men, we as fathers and husbands need to stand up and be strong. Just like Joshua said in Joshua, he says, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And if you're going through a hard time, or you've experienced trauma, or you're going through something really rough, or a rough patch, I get it. I've been there. Like, I've gone through and hit depression and really low points where I'm like, I just turned to alcohol. And I know that sometimes it feels like that is the answer, a quick answer to solve how you're feeling. But God is the one that can give you complete redemption and freedom from that imprisonment and that slavery that we experience through vices that the world puts on us, that Satan will use to control you. And if you're having a hard time, email me at team@barrelhatchet.com. I'd love to pray for you. And if you ever come to class and you're training with me and you'd love to just pull me aside and talk to me, I'm an open book, man. Like, come and talk to me. I'd love to pray for you. I'd love to talk with you. And I get it. You know, I've been there. And the one who gets it more than I do is Jesus. He's there with you every day, just waiting for you to turn and talk to him. You don't have to carry that load by yourself. He's there, saying, I'll take your load for you, and I'll love you through it. So guys, make sure you look out for each other. Make sure that you stand in the gap, that you are the warrior father that is there for the family, that you're there for your kids, that you're there for your wife, and loving her unconditionally, loving them without anything in return. Stand up and be the warrior that God has called you to be. Train to be the eternal asset. My name is Eric, and I'll see you on the next one.